Uh, Hello and welcome. My name is Allison Burson, and I am our National Greenway Director, and I lead our regional field team up and down the whole East Coast. I'm very excited to be here with you today. And if you've been with us for previous sessions, thank you for joining us again. And if you're just joining us now, welcome and thanks so much for being here. Um, I am so happy to be able to introduce my colleagues, Daniel and Bruce, who will speak to you with some updates about both the Mid-Atlantic as well as New York, New Jersey, southern New England. This is the third of 5 sessions of ours highlighting the incredible work of our field team in 2022 and giving you some previews looking ahead to 2023. In terms of format for today, we will have Daniel and then Bruce give some updates on their regions. And you can go ahead and put comments and questions in the comment section. And you can do that on Facebook Live, LinkedIn, or YouTube. And we will see your questions however you put them in, and we will do our best to get to all of them and answer them afterward. I'm also very excited to be able to share that today, thanks to a generous match from our board co-chairs firm, Langston, Stevens, Silver, and Hollander of Philadelphia, the impact of any year-end gifts to the Greenway will be matched up to $10,000. So I hope that you're inspired to give and support our work and at some point during the sessions, and you can do so at greenway.org/donate, and we'll be putting that link in the chat. Without further ado, I am very happy to turn it over to Daniel to give an update on his region.
I'm Daniel Paschall. I'm the Mid-Atlantic Manager for the East Coast Greenway Alliance. I cover Pennsylvania, Delaware, and Maryland. And I'm going to show the few developments that I'm really excited about that just recently happened or in the process of happening in my region. Starting north to south, going from Princeton is sort of at the top of the map, all the way down to Philadelphia. There's a number of trails in development, as you can see, lots of text, but I really wanted to highlight a number of ones just to help folks get their bearings. The DNL trail is from Morrisville to Bristol, the top of Bucks County, going to the border of New Jersey. And then from there, there's a number of trails planned and in progress of development from Bristol all the way down to Center City, Philadelphia. One of those is the Delaware River Trail that's along Northeast Philadelphia's waterfront. And a major development that's happening as part of the I-95 construction is the Delaware River Trail's sort of underpass. I don't know if it has an official name just yet, but you can kind of see here that they've developed a trail underneath 95. So this trail is separated from traffic, multi-use, wide enough for walking and biking together. There's going to be some stormwater features here. It goes right through Fishtown between the streets of Aramingo and Lehigh. There's still some final touches to be done, as well as some major touches with a crosswalk and signalization to make sure people can safely get to and from the trail. But this is a really exciting sort of change as part of the 95 construction right now. You can see in Northeast Philly, this little blue line is our interim route. So that's where people have to go to avoid all of the construction. So once that kind of finishes up, there's a little dashed line there that will be a trail, and that'll get people closer between Penn Treaty Park, this 95 underpass, and then there'll be another on-road segment on low stress roads through the neighborhood into Port Richmond to connect to Riverfront North Trail along the Delaware. So that's a really exciting one in Pennsylvania. We've got, of course, more in the works that I'll talk about in a little bit for the rest of the city, like Spring Garden Street. That's the one I wanted to highlight in Pennsylvania. Wanted to also give a shout out to the Cobbs Creek Trail. That's in progress. That's already been constructed in large part. Most of the trail is finished. They're finishing up some plantings, landscaping, and the major lift is the intersection crossing at Lindbergh and 84th Street. And this is in Southwest Philadelphia in the Eastwick neighborhood, just outside the John Hines Wildlife Refuge. And then a sort of a callback to last year's update in Delaware, right on the border with Maryland. The Elkton Road pathway is almost completely finished up. It is fully usable now, and we have designated it as part of the Greenway. This is a trail that will take trail users from Newark and sort of the bikeway network that exists there, the low stress bikeway, over to the border with Maryland, very close to Elkton. There's a stretch of bike lanes along Elkton Road to get you most of the way there. This connects a number of shopping centers, schools, elementary schools, University of Delaware, also the SEPTA rail station there, and the James Hall Trail. So this is a major improvement over what existed before. You can see this is along a pretty wide arterial road in Delaware. You can see the Southwest Bikeway is sort of the segment of that network of bikeways I talked about before, and have some befores and afters collages to show really what this improvement means for this segment of trail, about 1.5 miles. You're on bike lanes before on a 50-mile-per-hour road in some stretches, and now instead you can actually be on a separate path, fully protected from traffic, wide enough again for walking and biking. Some parts didn't even have sidewalks before. There's quite a number of connections to make. You can see lots of signs, as well as to Amtrak and SEPTA at Newark, to the University of Delaware. And now there's this full multimodal corridor. Hopefully, over time we can maybe add some trees, make it feel a little bit more green. But at the beginning of this, it's just so amazing to get folks off the road and out of harm's way. And then one more major development I wanted to highlight in Maryland. This is down in central Maryland, sort of outside of DC, between Annapolis and Baltimore, is the WBNA Trail. There's a bridge over the Patuxent River that is finally under construction. So that's super exciting. There was a groundbreaking just a few months back. I had a number of people out with golden shovels. This is a long-awaited connection that would basically make the WBNA Trail continuous from Anne Arundel County into Prince George's. So it'll be about 13 or so miles once it's all said and done. Here's a construction photo of it in process just this past summer. And that means, go back to the map, we'll have a continuous stretch again from Odenton all the way to Prince George's County. We'll have a number of things to figure out. How do we get from the WBNA to Greenbelt, to the Anacostia River Trails? But going the other way to Annapolis, we'll be making our way over to the South Shore Trail. That's this line coming down through Odenton, through Crownsville, Pearl. That will help us actually shift this interim route, which is very indirect. It's indirect because it avoids high-stress arterial roads. There's a number of really dangerous, stressful roads that force us to kind of go way out of the way. This is still not the most direct, but it'll be off-road and much more scenic. And it's also along MARC train stations. So that's really exciting. We're getting into the fall, and I think the changing of the leaves, of course, just the weather, the temperature is really nice. You're not too hot or too cold. There's lots of events happening. There's lots of fall festivals. It's just a really wonderful time to see the landscape in the Mid-Atlantic as those leaves start to change colors. And, just kind of, it's an exciting time, I guess. It feels, the air is a little bit crisper. There's, football and all sorts of things happening on the weekends. But, yeah, it's sort of the perfect time just to get out with friends and family and go exploring. In Philadelphia, there's a number of segments that are all isolated from each other at the moment, especially along the waterfront in Northeast Philly. Uh, One of those trails, the K&T, has a groundbreaking October 17th, and that will extend it. Won't be, super big trail, won't get all the way up there, but that will add another, I think it's a little bit less than a mile, but it'll get you up to Princeton Ave, creating a multimodal corridor. More so for folks traveling, you can actually come down to Princeton Ave. That's a connector street. Currently, it's pretty hard to get down to the riverfront. The K&T will become more accessible, and then you'll be able to go down towards. Right now, there's the boat launch down Frankfurt, and then you also have some connections back to basically up to Torresdale. That's where we're currently following on our interim route. But that will allow us to move the route down to the K&T and really kind of show that to a number of folks coming into the area from outside of Philadelphia who are following the route, may not ever see this otherwise. Currently, we aren't able to incorporate it because it's just too tricky to kind of get people down for just a short amount of trail. So this will lengthen the K&T long enough to really highlight that and show that off. That's what's over in this corner right here. So you can see how it's built along an old railroad corridor. Beautiful views of the river, the Delaware River. Lots of opportunities for fishing. There's some native landscaping. That's Riverfront North Partnership has done a great job of restoring the waterfront and the ecology there, doing outdoor activities with artists and naturalists, kind of getting people reconnected with that riverfront. So that it will be under construction this fall and going into 2023. Next one I want to look at in Claymont. So up here, the top of Delaware, where you're going into Marcus Hook, it's a very industrial area. However, there are bike lanes along US 13 going between Delaware and Pennsylvania. There was a road diet recently done on the Delaware side, giving more space to bikes. Still paint, not protected yet, so it's not officially part of the Greenway, but it is the interim route. And Claymont itself, you can see this dashed line closer to the 2. This will be a new trail that's being built right now as part of a new Claymont SEPTA station. And that'll allow you to get off of 13 sooner as you're coming into Delaware. Go by the new station, which will have more amenities, and it won't be on a curve. Currently, the Claymont station's kind of on the banking of the rail. But yeah, more space for biking and walking to connect through over 495 there on a pedestrian bridge back to Governor Prince Boulevard, where there's plans for a side path to connect you down to the Northern Delaware Greenway. So that'll help Delaware further increase its connectivity. Right now, it's about 70% done. So that's one of the higher rates of our states on the Greenway. It's super exciting. And then wanted to highlight in Maryland, excuse the flipping the slides. In Baltimore area, we have a number of plans that are in the works. And on both sides of the city, in 2023, you'll see more progress. There's a feasibility study connecting the Jones Falls Trail to the NCR Trail, which is not shown on the map, but it does go north-south here all the way up into Pennsylvania, up to York. That connection will help provide a piece of the East Coast Greenway, and it'll be up through Lake Roland Park. We're trying to figure out, what will be the alignment. That's up to the consultants that will be working on this study. So there'll be public input opportunities coming up. We'll be sure to let folks know about those. On the south side of the city, actually, on the south side of the river here, the Tapsco River, the Baybrook connector is another trail in the works, and that is being led by the Greater Baybrook Alliance. They're moving along with their study right now. So on both sides of the city, we're looking for better connectivity into the suburbs and to the rest of the trail network that exists already in Anne Arundel County. The eventual goal for getting from Baltimore County to Hartford, there is plans for a Ma and Pa Trail connector. It's a little bit longer off, but the regional planning organization has highlighted that as one of the priorities for the region. So that's really exciting to see some activity, some progress here, and lots of people are already showing support for these connections where trails aren't as plentiful as, say, this part of the state. So that does it for me. Look forward to talking with you all more and answering your questions. Thanks so much.
So thank you to Daniel for the update on the Mid-Atlantic, including Maryland, Delaware, Pennsylvania. And now we are going to transition to hear from Bruce and Daniel together about New York and New Jersey.
I am the Southern New England manager for the East Coast Greenway Alliance, and currently, once again, also covering New York and Northern New Jersey. New York and Northern New Jersey is a tale of, obviously, Manhattan, which you see there, along with the far bank of New Jersey, a substantial portion of which is done. It's important to note that New York has put forward a little over $100 million to redo not just the west side, which is our spine route, but also the east side, as well as starting to finally work on the gap around the UN and a couple of other places as well. So this is all good news for, walkability and bikeability around Manhattan. But you'll notice to the north, Westchester County, and to the southwest, Northern Jersey, substantial portion of which obviously is not off-road. However, to the north, and I will talk about it at another time, but pieces of Westchester County have been done as the Empire State Trail. So, in fact, that's a possibility for us. And as you get closer to Connecticut, there are other opportunities as well, including from Brewster, New York, to Danbury, Connecticut, which is in design right now as we speak, and some other possibilities on the Sound Shore going into the Gold Coast. So that's on the coast, the coastal route, which is our current on-road route for the East Coast Greenway. So I did want to talk briefly about the Essex Hudson Connector. This is a huge project. The state of New Jersey just announced a $65 million purchase of the railway corridor. It's a little more than 11 miles from the edge of Jersey City out to the middle of Montclair. And this is huge news for us because this is really one of the densest pieces of trail in the entire network up and down the East Coast. Very hard to build. So we have been looking for years and years and years for a right-of-way, and it looks like we have found one. So this is just fantastic news. It's going to take a while to do, obviously. 6th Street Embankment and Harsmith Branch Development. So there's the Essex Hudson Greenway, as I just talked about. The Bergen Arches in the middle, which is kind of an ongoing planning issue right now. And then the 6th Street Embankment, which goes literally right from the current trail due west for 8 blocks, essentially. It is going to be elevated, similar to the High Line Trail in New York, 40 feet high. Both sides are going to be developed per the developer that's acquiring the corridor. And the middle sections, the 6 blocks in the middle, are going to be, they're going to be park, elevated park. And it's just a fantastic project. This is a very recent slide from the planning agency, and you can see what they're trying to do. Block 1 to your right is the heavily developed block. That's going to have a high-rise building on it and a bunch of other things. But note that in the process, and I want to think these are meetings that I had 5-6 years ago, we were able to get a 30-foot wide right-of-way within this development. So that's what you're seeing right there, is that 30-foot wide development for the East Coast Greenway. This is going to be just a marvelous project. So that's it from me. today, but I want to introduce Daniel. He's going to talk about Southern Jersey and developments down there.
Thanks, Bruce. I'm Daniel Paschall. I'm the Mid-Atlantic Manager for the East Coast Greenway Alliance, and I'm teaming up with Bruce to help cover parts of New Jersey. We're going to look at the Delaware River Heritage Trail. So the Delaware River Heritage Trail actually goes on both sides of the river, but the big focus for the DRHT and Jersey are a number of these trail segments. So you can see from Trenton to Camden, all along the Delaware River, is our complementary route. So we have our spine route that goes on the Pennsylvania side from Philadelphia to Morrisville, crossing over into Trenton there. On the Jersey side, it's the Delaware River Heritage Trail in progress with many things happening in the last couple of years. Trying to show a few of those on the right side of the screen. Already, people have been able to go from Trenton. There's a couple of on-road segments that are actually in the start of being moved off-road. There's a couple of connectors that are being broken up into phases as connectors from the bike lanes that are called the Wellness Loop in downtown Trenton, basically right by the Trenton Makes the World Takes Bridge, Lower Trenton Bridge, going south to the minor league baseball stadium along the river. Then there'll be a connector further all the way to the existing DNR towpath that's also part of the New Jersey State Park. That beautiful entrance into Bordentown. It takes you all along the canal there. And once you get to Bordentown, there's some on-road riding, which is not too stressful, actually. So definitely worth, if you're up for riding on the street a little bit, or even maybe starting at Crystal Lake Park. The next section that I wanted to highlight is the Route 130 Bypass Trail that finished up last year, Crystal Lake Park to Roebling. This is a beautiful, about 5-mile section, segment of trail. Parts of it go right along the Delaware River, really beautiful vistas. The most recent one that just came into construction completion, I guess, is the Rancocas Creek Greenway, and it actually continues off the East Coast Greenway further to Pennington Park. But as part of the East Coast Greenway and the Delaware River Heritage Trail, this part is the one that's part of our route from Amico Island almost to the crossing from in Riverside going over to Delanco. So this is one of the views of that trail. Really lovely side path and a low speed residential street neighborhood. So very peaceful. There's kind of see the part of the Rancocas Creek, which is a tributary of the Delaware River. And then one more highlight that also finished up last year is the Kramer Hill Waterfront Park Trail. And so this is a beautiful park that's actually on top of a landfill that's been capped and remediated. It's owned by the state, and they have a number of trails that kind of circle around through the park. Views of the Philadelphia skyline. Kramer Hill is the neighborhood that's in the north side of Camden. That's also very much worth checking out. There's some other trails that are happening. Also, Edgewater Park here, just south of Burlington. There's a trail there that's being added. Used to be, New Jersey's side was a little bit further behind some of the trails in Pennsylvania, but now they're starting to pick up the speed. So it's really exciting to see Camden, Burlington County, and Trenton and Mercer County kind of moving things along here. Bruce talked about the Essex Hudson Greenway, Jersey City. There's a number of trails that already exist between the DNR, which is the longest stretch in the Mid-Atlantic that's continuous, 35 miles from Trenton to New Brunswick. There's a number of other trails like the Middlesex Greenway. You can see number 3 here, and a whole bunch of beautiful parks in Union County. Highlighted Nomahegan here. And then there's other trails that some are further away that are in planning. I think like the Raritan Connector has some progress happening along the river in New Brunswick. But then there's also some gaps that are a little more stubborn that we need to really work with our partners to figure out what are the future kind of rights of way opportunities to make these connections in Union County, connecting up to Newark. Now that the Essex Hudson has some forward momentum, I think that'll really help kind of drive the urgency up on making these connections between Middlesex County all the way up to basically Jersey City. One thing I wanted to highlight here is that because the current route is trying to get to, we're trying to go from Jersey City to Newark eventually on the Essex Hudson. In the meantime, I know in the past, folks might remember the truck route 19. There are sidewalks to get there, but it's extremely stressful. There's lots of trucks. There's lots of on-ramps and off-ramps and kind of confusing interchanges that are a little difficult to navigate. So we wanted to give people some options to show that there is a PATH train you can take between Jersey City and Newark. There's also a route that we are in the process of formalizing a little bit more. So we want to work with Union County to make sure we're, identifying the right roads and streets to use. But basically it comes down to these two bridges between Bayonne and Staten Island and Elizabeth and Staten Island. The Bayonne Bridge is the first one here if you're coming south from Jersey City. Right now, if you go to map.greenway.org, we have a route here that we're working with folks in like Hudson County and a number of others in the area to figure out, the safest way to kind of approach that. It's a little tricky to get to that, but once you're on it, it's a beautiful path, really wide path with beautiful views of the city and the surrounding skyline, Staten Island. And then once you're over in Staten Island, there is a route that we have going north. It's sort of, there's sort of the lesser of multiple evils in a way. It's kind of stressful right now. There are improvements in the works that NYC DOT are working on for better connections to these bridges. But once you get over to the Goethals Bridge, there's another really wide path with other really incredible views of the area, more industrial on this side. But that gets you over to Elizabeth. And then we're trying to figure out, the best ways through to Linden to get you back to the spine route of the East Coast Greenway. So this is really the interim until we can find something maybe a little bit lower stress like the Essex Hudson Greenway. So it could be some time, but this is where working with partners really helps us figure out what's best for everyone in the safest way for all trail users. All right, so that does it for my part of Jersey. Wanted to kick it over to Bruce, asking about what's coming up in 2023 that we can look forward to in the region.
Well, certainly some more movement in those major projects I talked about in northern Jersey. The planning meetings that I've been in for the 6th Street embankment are really quite remarkable. I showed one of the renderings, but that is really something that I think people are going to be thrilled about, as it becomes more apparent what it's actually going to look like and the usability and the economic development components of it and all of those things. And then, again, the Essex Hudson, that's the planning process for that. I think it's going to take quite a long time, but it's also going to move other projects. For instance, there's a connector that's going to happen. Getting into Branch Brook Park, that's been talked about a lot. There are other connectors. Then you talked a little bit about essentially what I call the park connectors. Trying to connect those beautiful New Jersey park trails to each other. Right. I think it's going to have a chain reaction. I really do. I think it's going to start, snowballing the process, particularly with the counties, the planning agencies in the counties.
Definitely.
I really think that that's just a fantastic thing. And then the other thing is that this ongoing, spending spree in New York City for both the Henry Hudson on the left side, on the west side, and the east side bikeway as well. You're going to see already sometime mid to late next year some notable improvements in, because there's pieces of that trail that are really quite old, and some of them are literally falling into the river. I mean, and it's time, and the city recognized it's time to work on that. Right. I'm really excited about that too.
That's great. I'm excited for it. So yeah, one more thing on the Delaware River Heritage Trail coming up. I mentioned before the DNR Connector South. So that's the project that's starting to connect Trenton all the way down to the canal towpath that's been isolated for a little bit. That will, I believe, begin construction hopefully in the next year, and move some of the route that we currently have on road off road to basically a bike path and some cycle track portions to get folks down towards the stadium in South Trenton, and with future connections to be made in future phases of that project. So that's something to look out for. That leads me into just places to highlight. We really want people to explore a lot of these trails and the towns that they connect. So on the Delaware River Heritage Trail, obviously Trenton and Camden, your starting points. There's transit in both of these places that you can grab something to eat in Trenton or Camden, and then hop on the river line and actually hop up to Riverside, jump out, go ride the Rancocas Creek Greenway, get back in, go up to Roebling. You can go along that river heritage trail, the 130 bypass trail that goes to Crystal Lake Park. Bordentown's not too much further. All of these towns have really lovely assortment of shops, restaurants, ice cream. Some have some breweries. There's just endless amount of exploring to do along that part of the river, the Delaware River Heritage Trail. So I highly recommend. There's a map actually online. We can share the link for the Delaware River Heritage Trail. It's got a number of sites in each of these towns and nearby those trails as well. So I'll pass it to Bruce, maybe share some of his kind of highlights for the rest of Jersey and New York.
So certainly, starting a little more northeast, Manhattan is Manhattan, right? I mean, it's a carnival of fun. But I would say this, if you had your bike or you were walking, on the west side, the Henry Hudson Greenway, you've got the Intrepid Museum, which is the Naval Museum. So it's got that huge ship out there and a bunch of other fun things to see. As you go further south, if you've never done it, you have to go to Battery Park. It's just stunning. Walk around, have fun. You get one of those soft pretzels or whatever. But it's really cool. And then across the river, Liberty State Park, which is where we started for the last couple of times the New York to Philly ride. You can't get a better view of Manhattan, and as you go west and then south, certainly the park trails in Union County, I think really are gems. They're kept very well. The surface is excellent, signage is excellent, and you really can't go wrong going to map.greenway.org and picking one or two of those state and county bike trails in those parks. They're just fantastic.
Absolutely. And we've found, of course, a number of places in Princeton on the New York to Philly ride to stop over, grab something to eat. A cool oldest bike shop, I think, in the country. Maybe that's the claim.
No, I think that's what they're billing themselves as.
Definitely worth checking out.
Yeah. So thank you all for listening to us babble here, but we hope we generated some questions for you, and we're here to hear them and hopefully answer them. So thank you. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us. And I've been loving seeing a number of comments and questions in the chat, in particular, hearing people share about some of the places they've traveled along the Greenway, sharing recommendations, and even links to some of the trails we were mentioning. So that's fabulous to see. And I've seen questions about volunteering, questions about e-bikes, e-assist bikes on trails, as well as a few other questions. So we will jump in and do our best to answer them. And also I saw some questions about navigation and mapping. So I guess first question, I think in order that they came in, how can I volunteer in my area to clean leaves, trash, and as well as make recommendations if I see any maintenance needs? And Daniel, is that something you could answer? Because I think that question is coming from someone in Pennsylvania somewhere.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's great to hear that anyone is interested in beautifying and maintaining the area you live near. We team up with people. That's how, we're able to do that with such a small staff for 3,000 miles. So the biggest part of this is reach out to us. I'm at daniel@greenway.org. And let me know, where you are, where you're interested in getting involved, and I can connect you with partners. We work with closely along the East Coast Greenway corridor in Pennsylvania. One of the big ones for Greater Philadelphia area is the Bicycle Coalition of Greater Philadelphia. But then there's also a number of nonprofits that are specific to trail segments that are part of the Circuit Trails Coalition. So that's just one metro area. There's a similar quilt of many logos and partners for all the other metro areas up and down the East Coast. So I think it really just starts with having a conversation and reaching out to us, and we can kind of better field those inquiries on a case-by-case basis. But there's certainly lots of spring events that involve cleanups along trails, gatherings that can be part celebration because you want to have something positive as well to get people out, maybe have, some food or some music even. We try to team up with different groups to create new inviting ways to get people outside. So and then volunteering in general, the Greenway always needs more awareness building. That's one of the easiest things you can do is go explore it. Go to map.greenway.org. We have our route there, and you can find some of the trails that are close to you. And go, bring a friend who might not normally go out on a trail and take them on a walk or a run or a ride. Take photos, share those. If you're on social media, share those on those, tag us. That's a huge part of this effort, is just letting folks know that this concept exists and that it's growing every year. So we really recommend just experiencing it, because that's one of the best ways and most fun ways to get out. And then finally, if you really want to get into the weeds of, say, communication or planning, reach out to us again. We have committee meetings for each state that happen periodically throughout the year, as well as just project-specific public events that we want people to show up, raise their voice, tell their elected officials that they want these projects. So I'll stop there. There's lots to volunteer for, but yeah.
Thanks, Daniel. And our next question is regarding off-road trails only. What are your feelings about recent, more restrictive rules for e-assist systems? And I think I'll broaden this to also just e-bikes in general, because there's a range. And Bruce, if you want to say a bit, and this is a long topic and we've got a few minutes, so we'll give the short version.
Yeah, so this is what I call a 3-beer topic. This is something we could probably do an entire session on. I will say this: there are unique instances of usability for e-bikes in particular, but also other e-transportation in urban centers, and I think that's something that we need to kind of bifurcate from kind of everything else to a certain extent. So I'll give you an example. E-bikes, as such, were actually banned for a couple of years in New York City until it became very apparent that the entire delivery subculture of the island of Manhattan was contingent upon e-bikes in some form or another, or smaller motorbikes in certain instances. But and a lot of that is class 3 e-bikes. So let me talk about that. Most states now have identified 3 classes of e-bicycles, 1, 2, and 3. 1 and 2 tends to be designated as usable on multi-use off-road trails. The concept there is they have less voltage, they can't go as fast, and they have pedals, so they're actually legitimate bikes, right? Class 3 e-bikes, in some cases, may not even be a bike. They tend to have a throttle, a lot more power. They can go, many of them, well over 30 miles an hour. So there's that aspect to this. Now, another aspect. Ultimately, one of the reasons why e-bikes are lumped in, as it turns out, with motorized wheelchairs is because of the Americans with Disabilities Act assist concept, whereby someone older, someone infirm, someone, you name it, has the ability to use those electric devices to move around, on the trail system. And I don't think anybody would say no to that, right? I think that's just, it's part now of governmental outreach, and I think rightly so. And I will add one more thing to this, which is the vast majority of our trail systems do allow e-bikes. There are some cases where they're not allowed. It's fairly rare these days. However, we do have something of an etiquette problem and something of a learning to live with each other problem, which is we do have some people that are riding their e-bikes just too fast, and they're acting in a dangerous manner. We have discussed in multiple jurisdictions in multiple states things like traffic enforcement, municipal speed limits for trails. That's something that is happening as we speak in a bunch of different places. And in general, an awareness that there needs to be an educational component to all these uses on our multi-use trail systems. So I'll stop there. You can tell I could go on forever on this, but I hope that helped.
Thanks, Bruce. That's sort of the beginning of the answer. I think our next question is about GPS and navigation. Is there ECG GPS navigation through Google Maps? And I'll go ahead and answer this one because I love the question that's taking us from so much of our work is on the planning and design and getting it to the point where you can walk and bike in these places comfortably. And we've got map.greenway.org, which lets you plan a route in that site. You can also use that to get Google map directions to the Greenway. And then also another really great tool that can be a great resource, Ride with GPS, is great for allowing you to do route planning on your own. And remember, there are various map layers. And if you use OpenStreetMap, that will show you the Greenway as you're looking in Ride with GPS, as well as you can export routes from our web that you make on map.greenway.org. You can export that into Ride with GPS if you want to do other route planning. And we're about to have a new user guide and video on our website explaining how to do that, because we've made some changes to how that all works in the last few years. Then I think we've got a few more questions. And the next one, Daniel, for you, can you repeat when the Pawtuxet, I said it wrong, River Bridge will be completed?
Sorry, I had to get off mute again. Yes, so the Pawtuxet River, the bridge over it is part of the WB&A Trail connecting Anne Arundel County and Prince George's County in central Maryland. That started construction in the summer of this year, and they had posted an expected or anticipated length of construction for 18 months. So I think that puts it at the end of 2023. These projects that are really large do have potential delays, unfortunately. So we always want to throw that caveat in there that, we usually kind of hope for that, but kind of bank on delays. So, of course, this project has been delayed itself, just getting construction started for many, many years. And so it's just nice to see it actually happening. But hopefully it will be done by the end of next year. And check on the Anne Arundel County project pages for updates. Prince George's probably has one as well. We can share that link in the chat.
Thanks, Daniel. I think we've got one last question, which is from Scott Brody. The latest federal infrastructure bill added protected intersection features to the Highway Safety Improvement Plan. Does East Coast Greenway plan to encourage and incorporate these into design standards? Short answer, yes, we want the Greenway to be fully comfortable and protected for people, of all ages and abilities, walking, biking, rolling, and safe intersection features and crossings, really important part of that. And one big exciting thing that I'm looking forward to leading on in the next year, we have a Greenway design guide, which I know is incredibly useful for planning purposes, because so often there aren't Greenway specific design guides, and we're going to take the opportunity in the next year to update it. And this is certainly something we can consider looking at, as well as another topic I love thinking about. Sort of bollard design will be another, so preview on that as well. So I think that's all the questions for today. We will start to wrap up, and I want to thank everyone again. Both thank you to Daniel and Bruce for these updates and all of this incredible work. Thanks for everyone for joining us today. Again, we are so happy and thankful that we've got a generous match from our board co-chairs firm, Langston, Stevens, Silver, and Hollander of Philadelphia. And the impact of any year-end gift to the Greenway will be matched up to $10,000. So again, we'd really love to get your support for our work. I also want to mention, if you like Daniel's hat, or if perhaps Daniel's hat isn't right for what you're looking for and you'd like another hat or other Greenway gear, we have t-shirts and other items as well, and they're available on our website. And then we will also be sharing links to this. So if you want to share with friends and family, or you want to dive in on some of these updates, again, we'll be sending that out by email. So thanks very much for everyone for joining us. And again, sort of if you've got questions in this region, Bruce and Daniel are happy to answer more questions. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much for joining.
Thanks, everybody.